Okay, good evening, guys. We're live. Welcome back to the SMB show live. This is definitely the number one place to get your news on what's going on in the SMB market in the UK. We speak to real deal makers and business owners that are very active right now on Main Street. You can email us at live@thesmbshow.com. You can ask myself and my guest questions throughout the entire show. So that's live@thesmbshow.com. So it's been a while, guys. It's been, I think, 2 weeks since, maybe longer, since our last episode. I was traveling and I didn't take any of my equipment with me. So I was in the US and didn't have a chance, but it was good. I attended an M&A conference and I was actually a speaker there as well. That's the M&A Launchpad. Great event, great conference. I went to last year's in Texas. This year's was in Chicago, and I'll definitely be going to next year's as well. Okay, so before we bring our guest on, got a few things that I think is probably useful to go through. I don't know where to start really, especially with the budget coming up in the next few days. I guess we should talk about tax. Tax everything. It's the policy of the government, or this government anyway. So a few things that I'd like to cover. So I have here, so HMRC collected £830 billion last year, but they're now aiming to collect £1 trillion this year. And look, I do get it, right? You know, they need to try and straighten things out. You know, the country is in a shambles, and, you know, someone does have to pay for those bad decisions. But, you know, surely someone in their circle has said to them at some point, you know, if we keep putting taxes up and services become worse, what actually happens? Where's the confidence, you know, going to go when it comes to just the general public? There's going to be zero confidence from the general public. Okay. You know, tax revenues are climbing, debt's climbing, but, you know, performance in general is going down. And as I've said many times before, and so has many other people, you can't tax your way to growth and you can't borrow your way out of debt. You know, they're trying to tax more, borrow more, but all this does is crush people, businesses, and the economy. You know, the only way out of something like this is growth. But, you know, if you create an environment that makes it almost impossible to grow and then wonder why things, you know, don't get better, then, you know, it's actually insanity when you think about it, right? You know, and look, the government themselves, you know, they can't themselves create growth itself, but they can create an environment for growth. You know, this government, well, all governments, they need entrepreneurs. You know, why would you penalize productivity? You know, risk should be rewarded. You know, some people are putting their houses up, personal guarantees on assets. You know, why would people take those sort of risks if the environment is, or the odds are stacked against them? You know, let's be honest, government spending is totally out of control. I definitely feel like it's gone too far. So look, on the 26th, if they do, and I'm serious, if they do hit pensions and property and ISAs and capital gains all together, it's not just going to be a further dip in confidence. There will then be zero confidence left in this government. I feel like it's almost there already. I did see the petition. I think over 1 million people signed now. It just shows you what happens when you start making these decisions and then you try and sell it to people through some form of marketing stunt that they're helping the average person, when the average person is getting absolutely crushed at the moment. So yeah, that's the problem that we're facing at the moment. I just want to pull something up. You know, for anyone that doesn't follow me on Instagram, I posted something the other day, and the reason why I posted it is because I started Googling and I couldn't believe some of the stats I come up with. So let me pull this up. So my post read, people are sat at home on Netflix moaning that AI will take their jobs. Our country is not in a good place. There's no signs of improvement. And UK productivity is still lower than it was in 2008. 17 years, zero progress. It's not a slowdown. It's a structural failure. Crazy, right? 17 years, zero progress. The bar is so low, it's impossible not to stand out if you're willing to put some work in. And the truth is, if a company went 15 or over 15 years with no productivity growth, the CEO would be fired immediately. The UK is doing the same thing, and they're calling it normal. And this is a stat that I thought was wild, right? You think of the UK and Great Britain, as people like to call it. Do you know the UK actually ranks 35th globally in productivity per hour? We're meant to be the forefront of a stable economy, right? And then I put that we love talking like a G7, but perform like a mid-table economy. Governments don't create growth, but they're meant to create the conditions in which growth becomes possible. Regulation, stability, and incentive shape growth. Innovation, enterprise deliver it. And this is where we're at, guys. It's got to the stage where, it almost makes it not, people are already saying that it's not worth taking on risk, which is crazy, right? I just want to quickly share this with you because I thought this was, this really hit me. And I didn't know half of this until I seen this clip.
This is the most corrupt government of my lifetime. Scandal after scandal after scandal.
And Adam, I'm sorry, I have to come back on this. The most corrupt government of our lifetime.
In 15 months, we've had a housing minister that has failed to pay stamp duty. We've had a corruption minister that is accused of corruption. We've had a Prime Minister in Keir Starmer that failed to declare freebies from his friend Lord Ali. We've had a Transport Secretary who failed to declare a fraud conviction. A Business Secretary that caught lying about being a solicitor. That is an offence. Rachel Reeves herself lied on her CV. Any other person in any other job would be sacked. That is in 15 months. You cannot say that that is not a corrupt government.
Yeah, that's a mic drop moment there. But that's wild, right? And then this one actually made me laugh, so I'll just play this one quickly. But I wish I was listening in when this was live. Oh. That's all sense of humor is right up my street. But yeah, look, it says it all. It says it all. The thing is, the reason why those things there are so amusing and like kind of funny and kind of not funny is because it's all true. It is. This is, as of right now, I think global politics is a circus, but the UK is definitely leading the way when it comes to circus politics. But look, let's finish this piece on a bit of a positive because, there is room for optimism. If the November budget delivers credible supply side reforms and restores even just a sense of fiscal stability, I know it's a long shot, but if it does, then there is a chance that it could spark some form of meaningful rebound in, business and investor confidence, which is definitely needed right now. So just with the right signals, just some small signals of them backtracking how aggressive they've been on some of the anticipation on the build up to this budget, just some decent signals may restore some confidence from the people in the economy that, are the life and blood of the economy. Whether people like it or not, entrepreneurs, business owners, investors are the life and blood of this economy. But we'll see. We'll see. We're only a couple of days away now, 2 days, and we're going to have a verdict. So put your seatbelts on. Sit tight, guys. Sit tight. Right. Next thing I was going to cover quickly is AI. AI, of course, at the forefront of the news as usual. And with OpenAI's huge valuation and the sort of backlash Meta is having because, they announced that the world they announced that they would start using our conversations with their chatbots for ad targeting, and there was no option for opt out, so they can't fully opt out of this. So there's a bit of backlash there. So the world's definitely tense at the moment from with everything that's going on in AI, and of course you have the race between the US and China at the moment, which is also interesting to watch from the sidelines until it comes into our homes and our day-to-day life, and then maybe it will be interesting, or maybe it'll be less interesting. Who knows? But look, I was at the World AI Expo over the weekend, and one of the sort of takeaways is one of the biggest takeaways for me, and it was one of the things that one of the Microsoft execs actually said. And he said that AI isn't held back by technology; it's held back by leadership and discipline. I thought that was very powerful because, there's a lot of talk around, job destruction when it comes to AI. And of course, that happens every single time we go through a different wave of any form of innovation. Tech obviously has been at the forefront for decades now, because every time there's an upgrade of tech, then, we've got to look at it from both sides. Jobs are created and jobs are destructed. That's just the way this is. But there is a lot of talk around AI, and, some of the things that's happening in AI is amazing right now. When you think about the future, the efficiency, the innovation, the societal benefits as well, with healthcare and all the optimism around those benefits as well. Some are saying that it's going to be good for economic growth, but then also a lot actually think it's going to have a negative impact on us as well, when you look at just disruption for jobs and the market in general. But there's also a lot of concern that the AI adoption can probably or will amplify biases in data, which I think we're already seeing to some extent at the moment. And, which definitely causes a lot of concern for privacy and surveillance in general. And then, you look on the other side, some people just think is overhyped and just causes economic risk, and there's a lot of, when we go through these phases, when you look at history, the dot-com bubble, you look at cryptocurrency, people talk about bubbles. Is this a bubble? This is the big question at the moment. I don't think it's a bubble. I think that, artificial intelligence and super intelligence in general is going to continue to go in that direction. But, AI is clearly part of our day-to-day already. Okay. Now, what happens from here out, only time will tell. There's some great minds in the space, and that have, I would probably say, the opposite opinion, so there's good signals and bad signals. So, but the way this is probably going to roll out, when there's a lot of hype, it's the same as when we had the hype in the 2021 or 2020/2021 bull run in crypto, right? All of a sudden you had all this real world use case talk around the tokenization of real world assets, certain transactions done through smart contracts, and the whole, narrative around real world use case was really at the forefront of everything. And, that's now rolling out to a certain extent right now when you look at the tokenization of pretty much everything. We talked about this, I think, on the last episode of the SMB show. So it does take some time for these things to play out. But when it happens, you don't know what happens. So if we look back at, say, contactless payments, which, if you went back a few years ago, probably more than a few years now, it would have sounded quite strange, right? But then it becomes second nature, to the point where I don't personally take my card anywhere with me anymore. And this is what's going to happen with AI. And you're seeing it now on a small scale with ChatGPT, where people are relying on ChatGPT to write their emails, to respond to people, and to take advice. And advice from an LLM is great if you feed it the right data and the right data is coming back. Now, one of the things at the expo on the weekend was one of the presentations talked about where the LLMs are getting their information from. And that makes a big difference in the information that's being fed to you. So we are seeing it already where people are using it on a day-to-day basis now, but it hasn't happened the way people are saying it's going to happen just yet. a lot of hype and the timeline of events that people predict in these situations always or usually ends up taking a lot longer than they anticipate. This will happen fast, but probably going to take a lot longer than people think. There's a lot of AI out there right now that just doesn't function very well. But there are some things that are very good. Okay. But look, I've had many conversations with good people around AI, a lot of discussions around, AI causing job destruction is one of the main discussions I've been having. And even this topic here, there's two sides of the coin, because, there's going to be huge deflationary pressure, which means, many things out there that we use right now is going to cost less. So, ultimately, you would like to think this brings down the cost of living. And Elon talks a lot about this and has been recently. If you think about it, everything should cost less, right? And also there's going to be a lot of new industries that are going to be born that don't exist today. And, we've seen this happen over and over again in history. A huge percentage of people used to work in industries that, don't exist today, or, have become a very small percentage of the global market. So if you think about it, right, it wasn't long ago that if you said, a podcaster or a streamer would have made sense as a job, even a couple of years ago, let alone 100 years ago, it would have been laughed at, right? So there's going to be things that just don't make sense today that will be big business in years to come. And that's just the way this goes. I actually think people are probably going to be paying a premium for things that we take for granted today. Human interaction when going through the customer journey will be charged, in my opinion, at a premium service, because I would definitely prefer to do that. If I call the bank and I need to get hold of them very quickly, if they pulled me up on the phone and was like, pay £10 and we'll put you straight through to somebody, I'm probably going to do that every single day of the week if I need to get on the phone to somebody. So these are the things that I feel that are probably going to become a premium service at some point. So that's the piece on AI. Now, just before I bring on today's guest, I want to share something that I believe delivers M&A success in the current climate. Okay, there's a lot of pressure on business in general. There's huge amounts of opportunity right now, and there still will be over the next decade. But this is some of the things that I think should be a core focus on real acquirers. So real M&A success right now definitely demands active operational focus on improving the business that you buy itself. Okay. This isn't the same as it was. The value creation that you read in books that private equity have executed over the past couple of decades, things are changing. The most successful in the space are taking more of an active hands-on value creation approach here. So for us as buyers, this definitely means not only assessing the deal price itself, but also how much value can you create after the acquisition. And that may be yourself, that may be your network, the team you have. It may come from various different ways, okay? And then on the growth side is looking at, pricing for value itself, not just cost plus. There's so many companies still doing cost plus. There's upsell opportunities, there's cross-sell opportunities. If you can create those channel partnerships, these things definitely need attention. And, then operationally, it's definitely important to look at working capital optimization, lean process improvement, and scaling infrastructure. These things are absolutely key. These are things that you should be taking into consideration anyway, but more now than ever. Because if you can really drive the value creation yourself, or you and your team can, then you are going to be a standout company, and you are going to attract institutional grade in buyers if you can get the company to the level where it attracts an institutional grade investor. But then also, when you're looking at other opportunities in the space, who do you think business owners are going to trust? Who do you think is going to be the safe pair of hands when the person that says, I'm going to buy this company, but I'm not really going to do anything with it. I'm just going to let the management team continue doing what they're doing and hope the business grows. Or the person that says, look, I'm going to work with you, the team that you have. I'm going to make sure everybody's on the same page. and we want to drive this business and take it to the next step. We're not going to take any ridiculous risks. We're going to try and do this in the most stable, efficient way we possibly can. And our core focus is to maintain the company the way it is today and make sure the transition from yourself to us goes as smooth as possible. And then we're going to look for growth opportunities. So when someone's looking at a target company today, I think it's important to look for pricing power potential, margin expansion improvements, working capital drag, operational efficiencies, talent gaps, revenue composition, revenue quality, core revenue drivers, customer retention. But a lot of the value creation is now going to come from revenue growth. Okay. There will be other things that you can do. Of course, there's different levers that you can pull, but it is important to take these things into consideration. As much as we are when we're analyzing the historical data to see, how the business has done up to now, we also want to try and figure out what the business could be and where we can take the business as well. These are the things that you need to be focused on. I think these are the things that are going to be the difference in the people that, really gets the real M&A success over the next 5 years. Cool. Anyway, enough of me ranting. Let's bring on today's guest. It's been a long time because we actually tried to do this a couple of weeks ago before I went to the States. And for some reason, we had some audio difficulty. I think it was actually on my end. I don't even think it was on Mitch's side. But anyway, we're going to dive straight in and we're going to bring Mitch on.
Mitch. Good evening.
Oh, I can hear you today. Amazing.
Oh, good. Good.
So, guys, for those that don't know Mitch, if you follow me in any way, shape, or form, you definitely would have seen Mitch before. If you don't know Mitch came through the 5D program, acquired a couple of businesses. He now helps other people in the program acquire their first business, and he's in the process of completing on his third business. Now, the thing that I really admire with Mitch is Mitch come into this without any business experience or any background in business, rolled his sleeves up, took action, done a couple of deals. And not only has he done some deals, he's also grown the businesses that he's bought. The one of them, he's increased the EBITDA by 75%. So, for someone that, a couple of years ago probably would have thought, shall we take a bet on this guy? Has now defied all the odds. And now not only is an amazing deal maker, but has also proven to be a master operator as well. So, Mitch, appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for the kind words.
God, mate, you should clip this out, and this is your intro now going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So, look, Mitch, I think a good place to start is search criteria. I think it's the one part of this where if someone doesn't have an experience in any, if they haven't come from any industry and don't have any core experience in an industry, they always get lost in, what should I look for? What industry should I look for? I don't know what to do. What would you say when it comes to search criteria, if you're looking experience versus no experience? What would be your advice for someone starting out?
I think you have to take one step back and look at yourself. So really understand what you're good at, what you're not, what you enjoy. So for me, I'm a practical learner. I learn by doing. As you said, that I jumped in head first because I knew that's how I would learn. Yes, I make mistakes along the way, but I'm luckily I'm a quick learner, so I feel like I could go into any industry and learn quite quickly, ask the right questions, and get like that. But there might be others that they're not as good as that, but they might be very good operators. They understand business or whatever that is. So yeah, I think you just need to take a back seat and think, what am I good at? What am I not? And then look for industries that way. So the way I break it down is operator or overseer. So for me, I'm better at overseeing, taking a back seat, letting people do the day to day, and then coming in with ideas and thoughts as to how can we improve this? Whereas there's other people that are better operators. They're being involved in the business day in, day out. Obviously, we know one of our business partners. He's like that. He's big on operating. So that's how I would look at it first. And then in terms of then industry, I think a big thing is that people underestimate. You could own this business for 10, 15, 20 years. That you have to have some sort of interest. I understand people say, I just want to buy a business and it makes money. I do get that to a point, but if you don't have passion for it, I think after a time it does become almost a bit laborious and a bit more like a job. So I do think passion is a big thing in that. And then, as you were kind of touching on, this is understanding what the future is going to be like. Obviously, the anticipation for Wednesday, I don't think I've seen anticipation like it for a budget. But yeah, having some idea. Yes, obviously we can't predict the future, but thinking about how it's going to look in a few years' time. For example, one of our industries, it's an interesting space because competition actually isn't increasing; it's decreasing, and the average companies are getting found out. So I think we have to go above and beyond to maintain quality and keep improving that. And then it's understanding that it's finding good guys and good employees is very difficult. It's a skilled trade that a lot of people aren't coming and wanting to be in when they're young. So you've got to think about how do we firstly find the good guys and then how do we keep them. So not just paying them well. There's other factors that people want to stay in the job.
Yeah. And then just quickly, if we rewind a little bit on, before you did the deals, look, a lot of people come into this and they realize that this is probably the best vehicle to generate wealth that's available at the moment.
Mhm.
I say at the moment, it's been like this for many years. How did you overcome those obstacles? For anyone listening that is thinking about doing this, you're very young. You look young, and I know we talked about this previously, but for anyone that hasn't heard you talk about this before, and put all that aside, having the business owner that you're speaking to realize that you're the best fit and the safe pair of hands to hand over their business that they've been running for the last couple of decades, and they're like, well, I feel comfortable with you, Mitch, based on the conversations that we had. How have you been able to do it? And especially at the start, when coming into this without having any experience, how have you been able to overcome those sort of challenges?
Yeah, so I think for a first time buyer and what we experienced, the the biggest objection is credibility, because ultimately you don't have a background per se in owning businesses. So you have to then figure out ways of getting around that. So the most important way, I think, is rapport, and you build that by not just building a relationship about their business, but outside of it. So actually taking an interest in things that they say. So whether they have hobbies in sport, do they have a family, whatever that is. And when you have multiple discussions with them, bringing up previous conversations you've had. So, oh, you said you're a keen golfer, say for example. Oh, how did you get on last week, or something like that. So you actually prove that you listen to them, and then from the business aspect, it's asking the right questions, and almost, I don't know if there's the right word, but blagging your way to sounding like you know what you're talking about. And this does come through reps and speaking to owners. So the first couple of conversations, you feel like you might not have gone well, but you've picked up things that they've said that then you can then ask for the next one, and then the next one, and then by the fourth or fifth conversation you've had, that they've repeated a lot of things that are key within that business or within that industry that then you can ask. So that is massive. And then yeah, I think, as I said, that rapport is the single most important factor, and it's how we got over it. And especially with business owners, a lot of them you'll speak to, it's their one and only business. It's their extra child, so to speak, and they have brought it from nothing to what it is now. So it's a lot of reassuring them that you're not going to go in there and reinvent the wheel and change everything, get rid of all the staff, because that's ultimately what they care about, that they want to ensure that the business is going to be there for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and so are the employees. So it is a lot of reassurance and proving to them that you're not going in there to change X, Y, and Z. It's subtle changes and utilizing your skill set that maybe they've said they're not good at.
And I think that you made a few good points there on, once getting the reps in. So once you start, if you have no idea about an industry whatsoever, but you like the sound of it, you have like kind of a generalized skill set. Maybe you've just been in sales or, just marketing in general, and you're looking at something, let's say you're looking at, I don't know, plumbing or whatever. Once you get the reps in, you take a couple of calls with some business owners in that sector, you start to know quite a bit about it. Of course, you're not going to be nowhere near the level you need to be, but you're going to know quite a bit about it based on just the conversation and the terminology that people use. And then all of a sudden, once you start getting those reps in, you already start to gain that fluency when it comes to these conversations. You start going through the same conversations. You start working out quite quickly and getting to the point quite quickly whether this is something that either even gauges your interest and fits your criteria, whatever it is you're looking for. So I think that's really important as well. A question I've never personally asked you, and I know we've done a ton of interviews. If you was to buy the companies that you've bought again, what would you do different?
Funny that I was actually speaking to one of the old owners the other day, and he asked me that question. I definitely allowed emotion to overtake it more than I should have. For example, we were probably about a month from completing on our second one, and the landlord doubled the rent. When I say double, he did technically double it, but it was to market value, so it was kind of reasonable. But I didn't utilize that enough as a negotiation tool to maybe put down the price. And on that same business, I didn't build rapport enough, so it actually took 18 months to complete from initial offer being accepted to signing the paper. It took 18 months, and that was because the rapport was just not there. It was just, from that, delays were just taking longer and longer. Communication was very poor. There were times where we'd go 1 or 2 months without hearing from the seller, and a lot of that was because he was anxious about something or was unsure about something, and instead of coming to us, he just was silent. And I think that's because there was no rapport. Because by building that rapport, they'll pick up the phone to you and say, "Look, this is the issue. I'm not sure about this," and then you have to come up with a solution for both parties. So I think that's definitely one thing I would do differently. And maybe one of them was very owner operated, and I think I underestimated his skill set. I didn't do enough research into how to replace him, the skill sets needed, and then the cost to that. I think that was been one. But I guess I've put a couple of things that people might say, "Wow, I'm surprised you bought the business," but it's not just a monetary value that I've gained from this. It's a lot of learning, and even if we've had a few things that have issues have arisen, these have really been really good learning curves for me, and that in future acquisitions, I know what to find. And yeah, so it's, what do they say? It's not a failure; it's a lesson learned. So I think anything you can turn into a positive is a good thing.
Yeah, and also I think, I asked the question around what would you do different, right? So you're going to naturally pick the things that were
Yeah.
negative about it, but obviously there's a lot of good things that have come from this as well. So if I was to ask you, what has M&A done for you? What would you say?
Well, as you said earlier, like it's the quickest and I think best way to gain wealth. I've tried most things, and I know you have it as well. And I think it's given me a lot. It's freedom. It's been a really cool challenge. Ability to meet people, travel, and like now with our businesses, there as a group, we're probably 3/4 of a million value, maybe closer to a million. Like that's that's pretty cool for someone my age. And I feel like we're just getting started. So yeah, the opportunities and what it's brought have been endless. I didn't think it was possible. Like, I remember when we first had our discussions a few years ago, you just don't think that you can just go out there and buy a business. Everyone's go to is, no, I've got to set up a business, I've got to then grow it. When they're there sat there waiting to be bought. Everyone knows how to buy a property, but very few know how to buy a business. So yeah, I think it's been nothing but positive. And yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I just wish I got into it sooner.
Yeah. Now, your group EBITDA, especially with the new deal, is going to be hovering around. Where will it be hovering around?
Just over £1 million.
Okay, so group EBITDA £1 million, right? All of a sudden, then you're at a level where you can start to demand, a higher multiple if you would like to sell at some point.
Yeah.
How long would it have taken you to generate the same level of profit if you continued buying buy-to-lets?
Gee. I wouldn't even be able to do the math. Yeah, I know that is. I'm good at maths, but I'm not that good. Yeah. Well, I don't think I would have ever achieved it, to be honest with you.
Not many people do.
No. And yeah, it is funny, as I said, that people buy business and that there's the huge thing of buying property. Sorry. And then when you can compare property to what you can get in one deal in business, and you can kind of see now why there's so many people in the group, and that are moving across from property to business buying. I think it says it all, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, you're probably going to need just easy numbers. If you be very modest on cash flow, you're going to need like 150 units probably, and this is the thing that I think people need to really think about is, people, the most common argument or, strong opinion that comes from someone that's solely invested in property. First of all, having a rental portfolio is a business itself anyway. But the most common thing that people say, well, my property appreciates in value over time as well. But they say it as if a business doesn't.
Mm.
And it's like, well, okay, and I won't get into it right now because I've done videos on it, but when you actually look at real inflation, and I heard a video quite recently about someone mentioned around, I can't remember the guy's name, is an old guy who used to work on Wall Street, and he was like, if the S&P 500 grows by 7 to 9% a year, but the money supply increases by 10% a year, then the entire value creation of the S&P 500 is zero. And this is where I feel people get sort of caught, when people say, well, yeah, but my property is going up on average 10% a year. It's like, okay, but if inflation's double it, then what's really happening? And then on the flip side, yes, you get the appreciation, right? You're also paying you're paying some big interest on those mortgage payments. And then on top of that, when you actually think about it, it's like, well, the appreciation you get from a property is one thing. The appreciation you get from a business is another one. You create value in a business like you would create value in a property if you were to renovate it, if you were to extend it, make it better, right? You get the upside. Well, where you're at today, you're probably average purchase multiples, probably 2.5 times EBITDA, right?
Yeah.
You get to £1 million of EBITDA, then you start to, and you're still around that average purchase multiple, and you start bringing other companies into that group. All of a sudden, you buy number 2 to 3, they're coming into a group that potentially is trading at 5 to 6. Again, the instant arbitrage, again, the multiple expansion as well. And this is where you can really multiply money. And that's why this has created the most billionaires, is purely because of these that is financial engineering to a certain extent, but that's why all the billionaires are focused on this. And of course, there's a different ball game between the way we do it and the way they do it, right? But that's why it's such a big opportunity, because they're not going to come down and buy the same companies that we're buying. So there's a huge opportunity there, right? The life and blood of the economy is on Main Street. And that's also where all the opportunity is. So in regards to the acquisition that you're currently working on right now, what is it that attracted you to this one? And, is this going to bringing this into such a big company into your existing ecosystem? Are you going to be kind of using the platform and infrastructure this has to better the businesses you already have, or is it going to be vice versa?
So it's kind of links to your question you asked earlier about what would I do different. That we are more strict on our criteria, and that then coincides with taking emotion out of it now, because we know what we want. So this business has that second tier management. Its owner doesn't even live in this country, lives abroad. So it's not like one of our other businesses where we've had to go in and be that operator, so to speak, early doors before we start implementing those changes. So that is a big thing for us. And we are big on synergy. I think because we're in the construction space, being able to then go to a customer or contractor, whoever that is, and being able to offer multiple services is a very powerful tool, because we all know that, and anyone that's owned a house or been in property, that managing multiple trades is very difficult, and construction isn't great at that, and the whole customer service and whatnot. So by being able to have those synergies and that ability to offer multiple services, I think that puts us in good stead. And this business itself is, again, it's in the high end, so we're in the high end market. It offers services that we don't currently offer, but then it also allows us to plug in our current businesses, because they use clients that we do, and they offer products that we offer. So straight away then we can then say, well, look, you guys are doing this, we offer this to other clients, and then we can then increase our service area and things like that. So it's just, the synergies and whatnot, and what it brings will be very powerful to our group. Not only the multiple expansion, as you were saying, and the increase in EBITDA as a group.
And how has your views on risk, leverage, and opportunity in general changed over the past 5 years?
I've always been quite high risk taker. I think, obviously, with my age, I think you can afford to do that. I'm definitely more picky now when it comes to the businesses that we look at, but I think that by having other businesses, that allows you to do it. In terms of, it's funny because there's days, I know obviously we keep banging on about it, but the budget, there's days where you're like, what's this going to do for the economy, and what's this going to do for our business? But then on the other side, as you say, that this is the times where true value is created, that if you can persevere and do well through these years, that it's going to, at some point, hopefully the UK is going to go back to being it's going to be going back to being quite a powerful country, and people are going to want to come back, and things like that, and it's going to be more on a positive foot. That if we have survived these so-called tough years, that's when we're going to see the benefits and the fruits of our labor. Like, one of our businesses is 24 years old next year, so it's been through the GFC, it's been through COVID. So I can't see why can't we get through what we're going through now, and the changes that we've implemented we're doing so well for what the where we're at. We've doubled the amount of quotes that we've ever done compared to last year. Like, we are inundated with inquiries, and you see competitors that are struggling. So I think that it's going to be a good space, but you have to be creative with deals, and you have to be very selective with the businesses that you go for. You have to buy, as there's a saying that, you can't buy okay businesses at a good price. You've got to buy good businesses at a fair price, and that's kind of stuck with me, and will do.
Definitely. You talked about the budget then, and I just seen a comment from Joe Watkins on Facebook. This is Starmer's country, the incompetence at its finest, and don't get me started on Reeves. So So Mitch, you're someone that, ever since I've met you, you are a very big thinker. and you think big, and you kind of like know in your head what's possible. And I don't know where that's come from, but what's success to you? If you could define success to you personally, what would it look like?
I know everyone says sort of happiness, but I prefer the word content. It's just being content with life, with business. I see success as having the ability to pick and choose what you want to do. Um, and I think the biggest thing for me is being able to provide for family and friends, whatever that is. So if it is a holiday, well, yeah, I'll pay for it. I'll treat you guys. Being able to go to trips and things like that, and not having that worry of the financial aspect.
Mm.
I'm not one that needs to have millions to be able to survive. Just a comfortable amount, and yeah, and I said I think that the biggest thing for me is being content.
A comfortable amount, 1 million in EBITDA, that should do it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
yeah. And then look, there's a lot of people that are going to be listening that are thinking about doing this, are, you know, probably in something different at the moment, whether they're maybe property, maybe you know, in a good corporate job, that maybe looking at like entrepreneurship to acquisition as the potential vehicle for them. You know, we're seeing it now in all the Ivy League schools. Actually, all the schools in America is absolutely massive over there. You know, I was even talking to someone the other day, and they had a family member that's just joined BCG, and they said that within BCG, which I thought was amazing, they're very much open to people discussing what they're doing next, their future, and even if that isn't part of BCG, which I thought was really cool, because there's no golden handcuffs. Well, it doesn't seem like that. You know, if people were like, I'm looking to go and acquire a company, they're allowed to talk openly and freely about it within BCG, and then network to see if they can get help from people within the company, which I thought was really, really good. Now, because it's being pushed right at the forefront in many ways now, it's still kind of under the radar, but you know, we are making people more aware.
Mhm.
Coming through 5D, what's been the most valuable part of it for you, the entire process? Because you pretty much come in, followed it step by step, and just got it done. What's been the most valuable piece of it all for you?
I think it would be hard to name one. I think just the whole what it's provided as a whole. The comparison that I always give, and I know we're banging on about property, but I think it's a really good comparison. Is that I think you can be reasonably successful in property by reading books and watching videos online, and a lot of people, we know a lot of people that have done that, and I think the difference between property and business is that I think it's very difficult to be able to go on your own and do that, and that's where the 5D group comes in, because as I've coined the phrase, I've never seen a question go unanswered. And that is massive, because there's so many nuances in buying businesses that one small mistake can be quite costly. So
Mm.
being able to lean on people that have gone through the process and advise on and warn about the mistakes that we've made, and they can learn from it, that's massive. And as you said, that there's a process there, and it's a step-by-step process, and being able to follow that without having to try and reinvent the wheel and trying to think about how this works, that it's laid out there for you, it just makes the whole thing a lot easier. And as you said, I think that anyone that is apprehensive and a bit anxious about doing this, I just think that you're still ahead of the curve, and you're still it's still not as prevalent as what it should be and what it will be. I don't think, especially in the UK. I think, as you said, America's a little bit more different. But I think if you can go quite aggressive now and buy good companies, you'll look back in 5, 10 years time and be like, I'm glad I did it, and glad I didn't wait.
Definitely. And then just one last thing before I ask you the final question, which is a new question I've never asked anyone before yet, but I will be going forward. What's 3 tips that you would give to someone on leadership based on the experiences that you've had over the past couple of years, taking over a couple of companies, with different culture, different disciplines in those companies, and just they both operate completely differently, right? So what's some of the things in regards to leadership that you have learned or you would give to somebody else that are potentially going through the same thing?
I think that the biggest thing is people. So it's having the skill set to deal with people, but within that, changing your approach to different people, and understanding like personality traits and things like that. There are some people that need the arm around the shoulder, and they can't take maybe criticism in a certain way, so you have to be able to word it in a different way with them. There's others that you can give a, excuse my French, but a kick up the arse, and they can take it, and so you need to be able to know that. And I think it's also understanding what motivates people. A lot of people, leaders, they just think that, oh, pay rise, and that's what they're motivated. That there's not people like that. Like my mum's a great example where she could double her salary and get a promotion, but she doesn't want it. She's comfortable where she is. So you then have to understand what's their motivation to keep them turning up day in, day out. So that's a big thing. Also, just because you are the so-called boss, the so-called leader, don't think that you can then act differently. And what I mean by that is, like for me, I'll happily get my hands dirty, and if there's a delivery or if someone needs help or whatever that is, I'll be the first one there to offer my help. And it's funny because sometimes the guys, they'll thank me for me helping them, whereas it actually should be the other way around, because you're my employee, yeah. So I should be thanking you for the service and everything, the work that you do. And I think that shows, and it goes a long way when someone is prepared to do the same. You can't expect someone to do something if you're not prepared to do it. So I think that's big. And I think the last one would be using your eyes and ears, and ears, so more so in the listening to people, listening to their ideas. Like, you're only human at the end of the day. You're not going to get everything right, and you're not going to have every single idea. And some of our guys have come up with really good ideas, and I've learned and listened to that and implemented it. So don't have that arrogance that just because you're the leader, you make all the decisions, you come up with all the ideas. Put it on other people, challenge them. Like they like that. They like to know that they're being listened to. So and yeah, I think all three of them just link to people really in different aspects.
Definitely. Okay, so last question. Who would you like to see as the next guest on this show?
Within the 5D or anyone?
Anyone, but within reason. Come on, we're just starting out, so.
That's a good question. One, yeah, I always love listening to him speak, and I think he's probably one of the most intelligent people, and he's a very good thinker. I would say your cousin Craig Hill.
Okay, let me get Craig. Have to hit Craig up.
Yes, that'd be a very good one.
When he gets some time from playing polo in Argentina, we'll try and get him on.
Yeah, yeah, that's success for me, playing polo in Argentina.
Yeah, starting to play polo when you're 50, because that's the hobby you take up. Yeah, that's definitely success.
Yeah,
that's a good one. So yeah, I'll make sure we get Craig on here. And just before we leave, Mitch, what's what's a good bit of advice you could give to someone, and just entrepreneurship in general, someone that is on the fence about everything, don't know what to do, feel they don't know where to go. Well, for someone that's taken that sort of leap and now become successful from taking that leap, what would you say to someone?
I think you kind of said it is take that leap. As I touched on earlier, I think that yes, there's a lot of negative trend at the moment with it all, but as I saying that if you can flip your perspective into being positive, I think that there is really good opportunity there. So I think you just got to jump in with 2 feet there. But you've got to have the right people around you. I think that's maybe something that I didn't touch on earlier about what the 5D has brought is just that the power of the network. I can lean on so many people for advice whenever there's a challenge or something that I've never come across. There's always someone to go to. So having a network and a core of people around you is massive.
Definitely. Well, Mitch, really appreciate you joining us. Guys, if you are in the 5D program and you're listening, then drop Mitch a message, because Mitch has been very helpful, and he's very supportive to other members in the group. So Mitch, appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
No doubt we'll have you on again very soon.
Sweet.
Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. So guys, that was Mitch Foley. Definitely give Mitch a follow over on Instagram. I'll pop it in the description below. So we'll probably go live again this week, actually, just because of the budget. So if you do have any questions, we didn't take any today, but you can email us at live@thesmbshow.com. Ask myself or any of the guest questions. And yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.